and you've had a really cool life thus far, and have got so many lessons to share with us. Now, I may call you Paul, I may call you Roscoe, and we'll explain why very shortly. But for those who don't know you, can you go ahead and tell us who you are?
Yeah, try to give you a short snippet here. I grew up in Alabama. That's in the United States for your overseas listeners. Grew up on a cotton farm and ended up joining the Air Force. I enlisted when I was 20 years old. Met my soulmate there. We've been married ever since. Ended up getting a crossover and become an officer and flew airplanes for about 13 or 14 years. Retired. I've been retired now for 5 years. And that's where I've found a new purpose. The military becomes so much of your identity, I think, as you're going through it. And it almost becomes who you are to a degree, especially in a flying squadron like I was in. I mean, you get renamed, for crying out loud. And you kind of take on that persona of being that guy. And then one day on January 15th, 2018, somebody handed me a flag and said, "Thank you for your service." And it was over. And I had to spend some time inside my own head, kind of reinventing who I was. And I found out a little bit about myself, and I was happy with what I found. And I've been kind of on this little personal development journey now for about 2.5 years, which I'm sure we'll get into, but that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. Now let's just back up the truck a little and go back to, like I love talking to pilots. I absolutely love talking to pilots because there's so many lessons to be learnt. One, from just flying a plane, and also, being in the Air Force, like you said, it changes you and your identity. But we were talking about your call sign,
Yeah.
before we got on air. How the hell do you come up with your call sign? Like, we've all seen Top Gun, and they got some pretty rad names. Like, how did you come up with yours?
Okay, so let me first just throw this out there, Maverick. Top Gun is a drama, not a documentary. So let's just leave that where it is. Typically, call signs are given out in fighter squadrons when you're young, and I'm talking young as an aviator. So within the first couple of hundred of hours or so, it's usually given because you either screwed something up really bad or you did something tremendously heroic. And those few who don't do either of those, it ends up, I mean, somebody has to come up with a story somehow to give you a name. And I'll give you a real quick on, I managed to not screw anything up really bad. I was also not tremendously heroic. I was very middle of the grade. And because I was a prior enlisted guy who crossed over when I was in my 30s, I was older than most of my peers as far as rank goes, and the guys that I was flying with. And so one of the elders in the squadron decided to call me Roscoe, as in Roscoe P. Coltrane from the Dukes of Hazzard, because I was older than everybody, and they were pretty sure if they gave me any responsibility, I would manage to somehow screw it up. So there you go.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And the stories behind how some of them come about, I would assume are so
there's
funny.
some good ones out there.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how much we focus when we're trying to name people, how much we focus on what the letters in the name stand for. Like, it almost always has to have some kind of duality or triality meaning to it. Like, tell a story and come up with a cool name. Like, I knew a guy, he was called Rust, which isn't terrible. I mean, it's not the best call sign, but he was called Rust, and it stood for "Are you still talking?" because he just talked nonstop. So little stuff like that. So,
oh, I love it. I love it. I'm surprised I don't get that one. Anyway,